All right, strap in, everyone. Today, we're going deep on Pulse Zen.
PZEN.
Yeah, PZEN, that's right. It's this Web 3.0 crypto that everyone in DeFi seems to be talking about, and we really wanted to understand it. So we dug into all sorts of sources, PZEN's website, stuff from the crypto community, even some insights from traditional finance sources like Morningstar.
Yeah, you've got a pretty interesting mix there.
Yeah, we do. And what really jumped out at us was this idea that PZEN is trying to, do good while also, making money.
It's that whole profit with a purpose angle that's really catching people's attention.
Right, exactly. And one of the things that really caught my eye was that pay it forward system. Have you heard about that?
Oh, yeah, the PIF. Definitely a unique approach.
But okay, before we get too deep into that, let's take a step back. Can you give us the elevator pitch for Pulse Zen? Like, what is it and where does it fit into the whole DeFi landscape?
Sure. So Pulse Zen is a cryptocurrency token. It lives on both the Ethereum and Pulse chain networks.
Okay, so it's kind of got a foot in both worlds then.
Yeah, exactly. That gives it wider accessibility right from the start, which is smart.
Makes sense. And where can people actually get their hands on this PZEN? Where is it traded?
You can trade it on a couple of different platforms like the Pulse Zen exchange and Uniswap.
Okay, so pretty standard in that sense?
Sort of. But this is where some of PZEN's unique features start to come into play.
Okay, I'm listening. What makes PZEN different from, all the other tokens out there?
Well, one thing they're really focusing on is stability and making things user-friendly. For example, on the Pulse Zen exchange, they've got this fixed rate exchange feature.
Interesting. What does that do?
It basically reduces the risk for users when they're trading. Takes some of the fear out of the volatility that can be a big turnoff for a lot of people.
Right, especially for newcomers who might be a little hesitant to jump into the sometimes chaotic world of crypto.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a gentler on-ramp to DeFi.
Makes sense.
What?
But okay, let's get to the good stuff. This whole pay-it-forward system, how does that work?
All right, so the pay-it-forward system, or PIF, is like one of the core pillars of PZEN. And with literally every PZEN transaction, 2% gets redistributed to all the token holders.
Wait, so just by holding PZEN, you're passively earning more?
Yeah, pretty much. It's like a built-in incentive for community participation.
So is it like a dividend then?
Yeah.
But instead of coming from, company profits, it's coming from the trading activity itself.
Exactly. It encourages people to hold the token long-term.
Interesting. And what about that burn function I keep hearing about? Is that part of this whole PIF thing?
It's related, yeah. So with each transaction, 0.01% gets permanently burned.
Burned, meaning?
Gone. Poof. Removed from circulation. It's a deflationary mechanism.
Ah, okay. So less supply over time, which theoretically means
higher value.
Right. Supply and demand, the classic economic dance.
But they don't just stop there, do they? I mean, we talked about that charity aspect earlier.
Oh, yeah, that's a big part of their vision, too. So 0.2% of every transaction goes straight to a charity wallet. And eventually, this will be managed by a DAO, right? Where the PZEN community can actually vote on which causes to support.
Yep. That's the plan.
That's pretty cool. I mean, not only could you see your own holdings grow, but you're automatically giving back to causes you care about just by using PZEN.
It's definitely a unique approach.
It is, especially for investors who are looking for ways to, align their money with their values.
That's becoming a big thing. People want more than just profits.
Yeah, for sure. But okay, let's say I'm not just content with holding PZEN and, hoping it goes up in value. Is there a way to get more actively involved and potentially earn even more?
Are you thinking about the PZEN LP rewards system?
You read my mind. But to be honest, I'm still a little fuzzy on how it all works. So this LP rewards system, let's try to break it down a bit. I think I get the basic idea of providing liquidity. It's kind of like adding fuel to the whole trading engine, right?
Yeah, that's a good way to think about it. The more liquidity there is, the easier it is for people to buy and sell the token.
Right. So with PZEN, we're talking about adding to this pool of, PZEN?
USDC.
USDC, right.
Mm-hmm.
And when you do that, you become a liquidity provider. And that's where the rewards come in, right?
Exactly. You get rewarded in a couple of different ways when you contribute to that pool.
Okay, so walk me through it. Let's say I buy some PZEN, some USDC, and then I go to, Uniswap V2, and I add them to this pool. What happens next? Do I get like a digital badge or something that says, hey, you're a liquidity provider now?
Kinda, yeah. You get these things called LP tokens. They represent your share of the pool. Think of them like receipts that prove you've, put in some funds.
Okay, so I get these LP tokens. And then what do I do with those?
Well, here's where the magic happens. You can take those LP tokens and stake them on the Pulse Zen rewards platform.
Okay.
And by staking them, you can earn a pretty high annual percentage yield, or APY.
How high are we talking here?
Right now, they're advertising a minimum of 18%.
18%. That's way better than anything my bank is offering.
Right.
But I got to imagine with rewards that high, there's got to be some risk involved, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's super important to remember that DeFi is inherently risky. The value of those LP tokens, it can fluctuate right along with the prices of PZEN and USDC.
Okay, so the value of my investment could go down.
It could, yeah. And there's also something called impermanent loss, which is a whole other beast.
Ooh, impermanent loss. That sounds ominous. You might have to save that for another deep dive.
Yeah, it's a bit of a brain twister, but essentially you could end up with less value than you initially put in.
Yikes. Okay, so definitely something to research before I go diving headfirst into the LP reward system. But for now, kind of want to shift gears a bit and zoom out to the bigger picture. PZEN's vision, this whole idea of a fairer financial system, a more rewarding one, is pretty ambitious, to say the least. Do you think it's actually possible? Can they really disrupt the traditional financial world?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's hard to say for sure whether PZEN can really revolutionize finance, but, I mean, they are at least trying to address some of the, the inequalities that are kind of baked into the current system.
Yeah, that's true. And this pay-it-forward concept, it's pretty fascinating. Just imagine, every time money changes hands, a little bit goes towards benefiting everyone, not just a select few at the top.
Yeah, it's an interesting thought experiment, for sure.
It almost sounds a little too good to be true, though, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, I mean, there are definitely challenges ahead for them. They're essentially trying to build a whole new financial system, which is no small feat.
Right. And then there's the whole regulatory landscape, which is constantly changing.
Exactly. Governments are still figuring out what to do with cryptocurrencies, and that can make or break a project like this.
Yeah, regulation is the big elephant in the room when it comes to crypto. But let's put that aside for a second and think about PZEN's vision. Even if they face, roadblocks and regulatory hurdles, could this model of redistributing wealth through transactions have a wider impact? Beyond just PZEN, I mean.
Yeah.
Could it inspire other projects or even influence, traditional financial institutions?
Now, that's a fascinating question. What if this pay-it-forward concept became a blueprint for other sectors? Like, imagine if a small percentage of every stock trade, every real estate transaction, every purchase you make contributed to some kind of pool of funds that benefited the community.
Whoa, okay, that's a pretty mind-blowing idea. It's like microphilanthropy woven into the fabric of our financial system. It sounds pretty radical, I gotta say. But the more I think about it, the more I wonder, could PZEN be a catalyst for a much larger shift in how we think about wealth, how it's distributed?
It's definitely food for thought. Even if PZEN itself doesn't become, the next Bitcoin or whatever,
Right.
The questions they're raising, the model they're proposing, those are worth examining. I mean, they are pushing the boundaries of what's possible in finance. And that's always a good thing, right? Even if it sparks debate and controversy.
I totally agree. Sometimes you need those disruptive ideas to shake things up and get people thinking differently. But speaking of shaking things up, we haven't even talked about PZEN's impact on the DeFi landscape itself. And it's not like they're entering a quiet, calm market,
Oh, no, not at all.
So how do they stack up against the existing players? What challenges do they face in trying to establish themselves in this very competitive arena?
Well, the DeFi space, it's a bit like the Wild West out there. Fast-paced, tons of innovation, full of opportunities, but also incredibly risky. PZEN is coming into this arena where you've already got these big players, Bives, Compound, Uniswap, each with their own strengths and their own loyal communities.
Right. So what are PZEN's unique selling points? What makes them stand out from the DeFi crowd?
I think their focus on social impact is a big differentiator. They're not just offering another lending platform or another decentralized exchange. They're trying to build a community around this idea of shared prosperity and, using blockchain technology to make it happen.
So it's about more than just like the tech itself. It's about the values.
Right. Whether that resonates with enough users, to gain traction in the market, that remains to be seen.
It seems like they're betting on this idea that people are looking for more than just profits in DeFi, that they want to feel good about their investments, that they want to be part of something bigger.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where the charitable component and the pay-it-forward system, that's where those come in.
It's a pretty compelling narrative,
Yeah.
especially for, the growing number of investors who are, interested in things like ESG and impact investing.
Right. It taps into that trend.
But let's be real. There's got to be some skepticism out there, too. Some people might just see this whole social impact thing as a marketing gimmick,
Oh, for sure.
a way to stand out in a crowded market. So how do they address those concerns? How do they convince the skeptics that they're the real deal?
Well, I think transparency is key. They need to be really clear about how the pay-it-forward system actually works, where those charitable funds are going, how the community is involved in decision-making.
It's all about building trust, right?
Yeah.
Showing that they're walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
Exactly. And they need to deliver on their promises, build a robust platform that people can actually use.
One that's secure, too.
Yeah, security is huge in DeFi.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But even if they do all of that, there's still the fundamental question that hangs over every cryptocurrency. Will it hold its value? Is PZEN something that people are going to want to hold on to in the long run? Or is it just another speculative token that's going to, fade away?
Ah, yes. The eternal question of value in the crypto world. That's a tough one. I mean, a cryptocurrency's value, it's determined by so many different things.
Like what?
Adoption, utility, scarcity, how the community feels about it, speculation, of course.
It's like a mix of economics, psychology, and a whole lot of unpredictability.
Pretty much, yeah.
Sounds about right for crypto.
Yeah.
But what about PZEN specifically? Do you see any red flags, any potential risks that our listeners should be aware of?
Well, one thing that kind of stands out is the lack of information about the team behind PZEN. In the crypto world, it's really important to know who's at the helm, their experience, their track record.
Right, because you're essentially trusting them with your money.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And anonymity, it can sometimes breed distrust.
Yeah, I get that. So a little more transparency on that front would definitely be helpful. Anything else?
Another potential risk is just the inherent complexity of PZEN's tokenomics. I mean, the pay-it-forward system, the burn function, they sound cool, but they also make things more complicated.
Right, so it might be a bit overwhelming for some users, especially those who are just getting started in crypto.
Yeah. And then there's the whole learning curve of DeFi in general.
So it sounds like PZEN has a lot of potential, but it definitely comes with its fair share of risks and unknowns. What advice would you give to our listeners who are considering dipping their toes into the PZEN pool?
My advice is the same for any crypto investment, really. Do your research, understand the risks involved, and never invest more than you can afford to lose.
Classic advice, but so important.
It is. DeFi is full of opportunities, but it's also, like I said, a bit of a Wild West.
Yeah. Proceed with caution, stay informed, and remember, diversification is your friend. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, no matter how shiny or promising it seems.
Exactly. Spread that risk around.
Wise words. Well, we've covered a lot of ground today, from PZEN's unique features to its potential impact on DeFi and, the world at large. But before we wrap things up, I want to come back to this question that's been kind of swirling around in my head. Okay, so we've talked about the potential, the risks, all the big picture stuff with Pulse Zen, but what about, the average person, someone who's hearing about PZEN for the first time and thinking, maybe this is something I should look into?
Right. That's where things get really interesting, I think, because PZEN is kind of sitting at this crossroads between, financial opportunity and social impact, which is a pretty compelling space to be in, but it's, not a guaranteed home run or anything.
Yeah, there are no guarantees in crypto, that's for sure. So for someone who's new to this whole world, what are the key things they should consider before deciding if PZEN is right for them?
Well, I think the first thing, and this is really important for any investment, is to understand your goals. What are you trying to achieve? Are you looking for short-term gains? Or are you more interested in a longer-term play, something that aligns with your values?
Right.
And I think that's where PZEN's pay-it-forward system and that charitable component, that's where those could be really appealing for some people.
Yeah, especially for those who are looking for a more socially conscious way to invest.
Exactly. But it shouldn't be the only factor driving your decision. Right?
Yeah. So it's not just about jumping on the do-good bandwagon.
Yeah.
You need to do your research, just like you would with any other investment.
Absolutely. You got to understand the technology behind PZEN, the team behind it, the risks involved, and also think about your own risk tolerance.
Right, yeah.
Crypto is volatile, period. And PZEN, it's no different. So it's crucial to only invest what you can comfortably afford to lose.
And that's, good advice for any investment, really, not just crypto. But with PZEN, there's this added layer of complexity with the tokenomics and all the different mechanisms.
Right. Right. It's not as simple as like buying a stock and hoping it goes up.
Exactly. You've got the pay it forward system, the burn function,
Yeah.
the LP reward system.
All these moving parts.
It's a lot to wrap your head around.
Yeah, it definitely adds a layer of, I guess you could say sophistication.
It sounds like PZEN is really geared towards a certain type of investor then. Someone who's, comfortable with a bit of complexity, who's interested in that social impact aspect, and who's not afraid to take on some risk.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. It's not for the passive investor who just wants to set it and forget it.
Right.
It requires active participation, engagement with the community, a willingness to, learn and adapt as the project evolves.
It almost sounds like with PZN, you're not just investing in a token. You're investing in an idea, a community, a vision for a different kind of financial system.
That's a really good way to put it, actually. And I think that's ultimately what makes PZEM so intriguing, right? It's not just about the potential financial gains. It's about being part of something that could potentially make a positive impact.
It's like they're trying to redefine what it means to be an investor, shifting the focus away from pure profit towards a more holistic approach.
Yeah, one that considers social and environmental impact.
Exactly. It's like it's no longer enough to just chase returns. Investors are starting to ask, where is my money going? What is it supporting?
And I think PZN speaks to that really well.
It does. Whether they actually achieve those goals, that's still an open question.
Of course.
But they've definitely tapped into something that a lot of investors are looking for.
They're offering something different, something more.
That's a great way to put it. Well, I think that's a perfect place to wrap up our deep dive on Pulse Zen. It's a really fascinating case study, I think, in how finance is evolving.
Yeah, it is.
And it'll be really interesting to see how it all plays out. To our listeners out there, we encourage you to keep exploring DeFi, keep asking those big questions about the role of finance in creating a better future. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Pulse Zen. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring.